Hello and welcome to another episode of Agency Leadership Live. I'm your host, Chip Griffin, and today we're going to be talking about in particular, one-on-ones, and why they are so important for agencies to be effective and how you can make your one-on-one meetings with your direct reports even better than they currently are. So, with that, let's jump into the show. All right, so first a little bit of housekeeping business. If you're interested in seeing a replay of this or any of our other shows or other pre-recorded videos, just visit agencyleadership.tv. Get full access to the archive there. And if you would like additional resources, feel free to join our Agency Leadership Council. There's no charge. Just go to agencyleadership.com/join. And of course, if you have any comments or questions that you'd like me to cover on today's show, just go ahead and drop them in the live chat on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you may be watching, and I will try to incorporate them on the fly here as we go. All right, so one-on-ones. This is a topic that has come up repeatedly in conversations that I've had with agency owners recently, and the general theme has been that they feel like they're not doing one-on-ones as often or as efficiently as they should be. They talk about how much time it takes, how they don't have the time available to set it aside for it, even though they know it's important, and they feel like they're just not really seeing what the value is. But they know that I talk constantly about the importance of these one-on-ones, so what should they do? And I imagine that many of you out there watching may have a similar question, and so I want to try to touch on that today. And I am a giant believer in one-on-ones, and I must say, early on in my career, 25 years ago when I was just getting started, I had the same feeling that many of you had. When I first became a manager, I felt like I needed to have one-on-ones with some of my team members, but not the ones I was talking to every day. I mean, we were already covering everything we needed to, right? And I didn't want to have to waste time, as I saw it, by having just another meeting. And of course, these days we're all inundated with meetings and particularly video conferences. We hear about Zoom fatigue. Gini, Dietrich, and I just did a podcast episode about that recently. And so why am I sitting here telling you that you need to have more and more frequent meetings with your employees? Well, here's the reason why. One-on-ones are valuable even if you're regularly talking to those employees, because it's an opportunity for issues to be raised by your employee with you that they might not otherwise bring to your attention. It could be good news, it could be bad news, it could be useful intelligence. It may be something that helps you read between the lines to understand something about their performance or to understand what makes them tick and how you can help them grow and achieve more for themselves and for your business. And so there's so much that you can get out of these if they're done well that you need to be having them. And you particularly need to be having them right now because many of you have transitioned from an in-office environment to remote work. And so there's an even greater need to stay in touch with your team members. And I know that you're probably using Slack to reach out to them throughout the day. You're probably on one or more Zoom calls with them throughout the day, whether that's working on client projects or you're having daily stand-ups or things like that. Whatever it is, there's still no replacement for that one-on-one time where it's just a designated opportunity for the employee to bring things up. And they have a lot of concerns right now. If you talk to your employees, you're going to discover that they're worried. They're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their health, they're worried about their families, they're worried about their kids. And these worries manifest themselves in ways that impact their performance on the job. And if you're having effective one-on-ones with your team members, you'll be able to start to sniff these out before they become major problems. You'll give that employee the opportunity to say, hey, Chip, I wanted to let you know that I know you're thinking about reopening the office in September or October, but I've got some concerns I want to make you aware of because I've got a family member that's living with me who's compromised or whatever. There are these issues that come up that an employee may feel awkward scheduling time for explicitly, particularly something related to the pandemic or something that is more personal in nature but still has an impact on the job. And so if you're having these meetings, and they should be weekly, you should have a weekly one-on-one with every single one of your direct reports. And if you have too many direct reports to be able to accomplish that, put a pin in it. I'll come back to that in a minute. But you should be having these weekly one-on-ones. They should be driven largely by the employee. So this is not your opportunity to riff through a list of things that you want them to focus on, that you want updates on, that you want to nag them about, that you want to make a point about. There's a place for that, and those you do need time in your one-on-ones to raise issues yourself. But the one-on-ones should start with the employee's agenda. They should bring to you the issues that they want to talk about. What's on their mind? What are their concerns? What opportunities do they see? And you need to create a safe environment for them to do this. So you have to focus in that first part of your one-on-one meeting on listening. Resist the urge to immediately jump in and say, no, that's not going to be a problem, or don't worry, we've got it taken care of, or that's a great idea, and cut them off before they have a chance to really express themselves. Particularly if you are the agency owner or you're at a senior level and you're a small agency, you have to keep in mind that it's not the normal dynamic that you might have had if you came from a larger agency where your direct reports are closer to being peers. If you're in a small agency and you're the owner, you've got 5 or 6 employees, everybody's directly reporting to you, there's going to be a huge perceived power and influence disparity between you. No matter how much you think that you're creating a family environment, you will still have the junior account executives who are sitting there and they're afraid to bring things up to you. The one-on-one is that opportunity to do that. And so you need to be prepared to listen. And you may be surprised at what you hear when you're listening. And the listening isn't just about the personal things that they may bring up or what's impacting their role directly. If you let them speak to what they need help with, what are you being an obstacle on? What are you as their supervisor having to do to tear down barriers for them? Because remember, as a manager, our job is to get the most out of our team, and part of that is being the sort of the icebreaker that plows ahead and sees the iceberg and goes around it, but breaks the sheet of ice so that you can still move. Right? That's what you need to do for your team members. And that one-on-one is the opportunity for them to say, Chip, I've been waiting for you to get back to me on this. Or Chip, where do we stand with this client or this prospect and what should we be doing about it? Give them that opportunity to press you for what they need in order to do their jobs more effectively. And you'll find as you get into this rhythm of quality one-on-one meetings, probably supplemented by some sort of regular reporting, whether that's by using a project management tool like Asana that you have access to, or a more traditional weekly report that comes via email from your direct reports, you'll start to get the full picture even better than you have it today. And that means that your one-on-one doesn't need to be all about your checklist and you pressing for this information. And instead, it can become an open dialogue. And whenever possible, I like to see these one-on-ones done outside of the conventional office environment. And again, obviously, mid-pandemic, most of you are not in offices, so not really as feasible. But when we are back in the office on a more regular basis, I love to see one-on-ones being done as walk-and talks, as coffee meetings at the local coffee shop next door, something that just breaks up the routine. If you're going to do it in your own office, try to come around from your desk. Try not to have the one-on-ones as an across-the-desk conversation, because that's inherently a power move, and it inhibits the free flow of conversation for some of your employees. And so you want to foster that openness in this environment, because it's your way of spotting the opportunities and challenges before you don't have as much influence over them. And the questions that they will ask may give you good intelligence as to how a particular client is feeling about your agency's work. They may ask questions that will cause you to say, wait a minute, is there an opportunity to grow this account? Or they may ask something that says to you, that's a new opportunity we should pursue, a prospect that we should be reaching out to on the outside because it generated that idea through the conversation. So you really want that open conversation. Now, what if you say to me, I can't do them. I don't have enough time in the week to do these one-on-ones. Well, look, if you're doing one-on-ones, they should be 20 to 30 minutes each week. Some weeks they may be even less, but I would encourage you, don't cancel them. Reschedule them if you need to get around client work or things that are of urgent deadline nature, but don't constantly postpone them. It signals to your employee that they're not important to be having these meetings, and they are. They're very important. So you want to schedule that time. If say you've got 5 direct reports, which I think is a very healthy number of direct reports, you can do one of those a day if you want, or you can batch them up and do them all in back-to-back meetings on, say, a Monday or a Friday, as has conventionally happened in many businesses. However you do it, if you've got a reasonable number of direct reports, this isn't going to be a problem. Now, if you are one of those agencies that's grown in a very flat organizational structure, and so you don't have what I would recommend is an ideal number of 5 or 6 direct reports, and instead you've got 10, 20 direct reports, solve that problem first. Okay? You need to address the fact that there's no good way for any manager to be supervising that many direct reports in the agency environment. There's simply too much going on, too many balls in the air that you need to be working on as a supervisor in an agency environment. And so you need to get somewhere below 5 or right around 5 or 6 direct reports. How you get there, it's not going to be overnight. You're going to need to look at your org chart and figure out, where do I want to be going? What does this org chart look like in 12 months? And if you can paint the picture for how you've got a reasonable organizational structure that ensures that neither you nor any of your own managers have more than 5 or 6 direct reports, you can start moving in that direction. Now, it's not an easy thing. It's not an overnight thing. Reorging your team is not something that you can just snap your fingers and do, particularly if you're the owner, because anytime someone is removed from direct reporting to the owner, they view it as a demotion of sorts, and you don't want to allow that to happen. And so you need to work with your team in advance of any move like that so that they understand why you're setting up a new structure, why it's good for them, and maybe it gives some of the folks more responsibilities. Maybe it helps clear up problems where you were the logjam. Because look, if you've got 10 or 15 direct reports, I guarantee you that you are an obstacle to getting things done. I guarantee you that you are a bottleneck. There's no way that you're giving the level of support that you need, the level of approvals that you need to give to work, the editing, the feedback, all of those things. You just can't do it with that many direct reports. So if you paint the picture and you move it gradually, then you'll be able to take people away from direct reporting to you as the owner, and they'll still feel comfortable that they weren't demoted because they'll see the picture of how it's benefiting them and how it helps them to get their jobs done more effectively. And ultimately, if they're doing their jobs effectively, that's good for them and good for the business. So now these one-on-ones, you need to look at them too in terms of how do you see the individual growing? Because a key portion of these is providing that regular performance feedback. And if you've listened to me, you know that I'm not a giant fan of annual performance reviews. I think you need to do them. I don't think that they're particularly effective, because at the end of the day, nobody should be surprised by anything that comes up in that meeting. If someone is surprised by something that comes up in a performance review, an annual performance review, it's because you were not having effective one-on-ones. Because those one-on-ones are that opportunity for you to have that communication with your direct reports so that they understand what you think they're doing well, what you think they need to work on, and how you can help them grow. And that needs to be an integral component of these one-on-ones. You need to be mapping out their future and helping them to get there. Because we all love to pay lip service to the fact that the talent, the team, the individuals that make up the agency are what give us our differentiator, what give us our value as an agency. And ultimately, that's true. If we didn't have talented people in our agencies, we could not be effective. And so you need to use these one-on-ones to help those individuals continue to advance. And I don't care whether it's someone who's been with you for 3 months, 3 years, or 30 years. They still need help to continue to grow, because at the point that an employee stops growing, it's time to move on. You need to have continuous growth, whether you're an owner, whether you're a middle-level manager, whether you're an entry-level employee. We all have things to learn. the communications environment is changing all around us, and we need to continue to adapt. And part of that is working with our own managers and with our direct reports to figure out what those plans are and how we get there. And so these one-on-ones are critically important, not just to that day-to-day operation, but also to the big picture, long-term health and growth of the agency. And so, let's see here. I've got we're gonna jump in here because we've got a comment, and I can't bring it up on the screen, but I will read it here. Jason Falls has tuned in, and he says, "I've struggled as the employee being on part removed from direct one-on-one with our company president. When you realize it's not a demotion, but a need for her or him to be more effective with their time, it's easier to understand for sure." Yeah, that's a great point, Jason. And it is one of those things where it does hurt. And I've been in that situation too, where I've been removed from direct report to an owner or a very senior person. And early on in my career, I took that hard because you view it as a demotion. And it's simply about trying to make sure that everybody is effective with their time. Because if you can't communicate with your supervisor on a regular basis and get the feedback and help that you need, you can't do your job. And so if you are helped to understand that, and this is part of the whole, one of the things that I'm a big believer of in the agency world is you need to be doing a lot as a leader, whether you're an owner or a C-level executive, depending on the size of your agency. You need to help your team understand why you're making certain business decisions. And this doesn't mean that we're turning into some sort of a democracy where you ask the employees what they want to do and then you just do it. It doesn't mean that you have to have complete transparency over everything. But the more that you can explain to the team why you're doing things, why are you seeking certain types of business, why are you avoiding other types of business, why do you have the organizational structure that you do, and when you make changes, why are you doing it? If you can help people understand that, you will get so much more out of them. And so these one-on-ones can also be an opportunity to have some of that kind of conversation. I know when I was running larger teams and I had these one-on-ones, I would often use them to make points about the profit and loss statement for the business or things like that to help them understand, the finances of the business. Particularly if you're dealing with people who are mid-level or up and you're trying to bring them up through the organization, you want to help them understand some of these business concepts that you've had to learn. And I know most agency owners themselves struggle with business issues, but if you can help your team, you will be making yourself so much stronger in the long run. So these one-on-ones are just so critically important that I think you need to focus on making the time for them, making sure that you're having them every single week with every single direct report. If you can't set aside the time to do that, then you need to figure out how to reorganize your team so that you do have that time available. And the other thing that I would add here is, in addition to one-on-ones with direct reports, as an agency owner, you also want to be looking at having more regular one-on-ones with the whole of your team. So let's say you're a 30-person agency, and so you've got your 5 direct reports, and then the tree kind of flows out from there, and everybody's got reasonable numbers. You still need to be looking for opportunities to have one-on-one or perhaps small group, depending on the size of the agency, meetings with everybody in your organizational structure. Not every week, that's not feasible. But depending on how many you have, you can do that where you're cycling through and perhaps once a month you're getting together with a small group of employees outside of your direct reporting tree. Maybe it's that every other week you have a one-on-one with someone. It's over the course of the year. If you've got those 30 employees and 5 of those direct reports, if every other week you met one-on-one with one of them, you'd cover the rest of those 25 folks over the course of the year. It wouldn't be a tremendous amount of your time, but you can't underestimate that even in a small agency, the value that those junior employees will put on having time with the owner. Because they'll put you up on a pedestal. They think you're even more important than perhaps you think you are. And so that's an opportunity to make sure that you are learning, you're picking up good intelligence, but you're also helping to build the morale of the team. And it's those opportunities that will help you to spot where you may be weak, where you may need to communicate better, where your managers may need to communicate better, where there are other opportunities that exist within your agency to continue to expand the business, or perhaps to spot some internal talent that is being underutilized where they are, and maybe they have a hidden skill that would benefit you somewhere else. And so you want to take advantage of all of these opportunities to engage as an agency leader with your employees, direct reports and otherwise, as much as possible, because that's how you get the most out of your team. That's how you get results. That's how you retain the best talent in a challenging environment. And particularly now, particularly as many of you are having remote teams that you're having to manage that way for the first time, don't neglect the one-on-one. Instead, prioritize it, stick to it, make sure that you don't let it fall through the cracks, and I guarantee that you will see useful results. So hopefully that's been helpful to you as you think about how to do one-on-ones with your own team members. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. Of course, you can see a replay of this show at agencyleadership.tv. As I mentioned before, you've got additional resources with the Agency Leadership Council, which is free to join. And in addition, it gets you into the Slack community where you can talk with other agency leaders and get advice from your peers as well. So agencyleadership.com/join for that. This show is live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time on Facebook and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, make sure you click the subscribe button and the notify bell so that you get notified every time we go live. Monday and Wednesday are topical shows, and Friday, of course, is the open Q&A. So if you've got questions you'd like me to cover on Friday's show, just email me, chip@agencyleadership.com, or use the Ask Chip function on the Agency Leadership website. Or, of course, feel free to join us live and ask your question in the chat on Friday. So with that, I'll be back here on Wednesday at noon. Have a great week, everybody.